speaking to member for South West Coast, Roma Britnell. Roma, how are you this morning?
Very wonderful. I've just been down to the pavilion and seen dolphins frolicking in the bay. So how could I not be anything but great?
We're so lucky, aren't we? You know, to be able to walk down to the beach and be able to see things like that. You just have to sometimes pinch yourself that this is where we live. And you know, Wales at the moment, we've got dolphins and obviously, you know, it's a beautiful morning. Bit chilly, but that's just part of being in the Western District. But Roma, plenty going on in your patch. First and foremost, another beautiful part of our area is Tower Hill. And you went out there yesterday and had a little bit of a look around, and it's something that we've been following pretty closely here at Southwest Local News. The new redevelopment out there is completed, but out there is no sign of life. And it's just such a waste of such a valuable resource. I reckon Tower Hill's probably up there with one of our most picturesque areas or landmarks.
I've been taking visitors there for years. I always had on the farm a lot of international guests coming, as I was a Nuffield scholar many years ago, and people come from overseas to visit me like I did to them as part of the scholarship. And I've always been really proud of it. We picnicked there on Sundays. That was our outing when I was a little girl. I'm embarrassed. I'm absolutely embarrassed. And, you know, I took the Shadow Minister for Public Land Management there yesterday and seeing it through her eyes where she said, what a beautiful place, but what a shame it's looking like it is. So it's just an absolute disgrace that the Allen Labor government are letting it fall into such disrepair. Spending all that money on that magnificent Robin Boyd building is absolutely the right thing to have done, and it needed it. But to now let it lay there unused, we all know what happens to buildings when they haven't got people occupying them. But the land area as well, the weeds, the hemlock, the forget-me-nots, the thistles, the nettles. I mean, the locals the friends of Tower Hill who go there and weed, they do their best. And I did notice there was an area that they'd sprayed. It was looking like it was about to turn and die. They can't keep up because the government won't provide the resources nor the management plan. And, you know, good locals doing the best they can, but unfortunately hamstrung by a government that refuses to acknowledge what a beautiful place it is and it should be managed properly.
So is this something that you're going to raise in Parliament? Because obviously we've been seeing it for quite a while. You know, it was a project that took quite a long time to get organised. Is this something that you'll be bringing to the attention? Because you're right.
I've raised it many times in the Parliament. Yep. I will keep raising these issues. There are so many issues, limited time. People probably don't realise that in the lower house, you've only got so many spots you can talk about stuff, but I use every opportunity I can in the Parliament to raise all the issues. And unfortunately, we do have many because the Allen Labor government just forgets regional Victorians. We've got 25% of the Victorian population living in the regions and yet only get 11% of the budget for infrastructure investment. And this is why the government have forgotten regional Victoria. It's not just South West Coast. People say, oh, it's a Liberal thing. Well, even go next door to Ripon, where the member is a Labor member, and she's getting up in Parliament talking about the lack of investment in their roads and, you know, this levy, the fire services levy, and what that's doing to her community. You know, this is not just, this is city versus country. This is a government that's so city-centric and has forgotten the country people who really make up a significant proportion and have every right to the respect of governance that we should be getting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I noticed that you've been keeping an eye on is you were down at such a busy intersection at East Warrnambool yesterday. You went down there to the intersection of Flaxman Street and Nicholson Street, synonymous with near misses, accidents, and I know you were talking to a lot of the people that frequent there. What did you find out about that?
Look, it's an intersection that's a real problem. The school is very close to an intersection that is quite a challenging turning point anyway, and it's really, really busy. And not only that street, but the street running along the Oval, I think it's Ward Street from memory. Sometimes as a local you forget street names, but we all know it.
Yep.
I think it's Ward Street. As you come out of the car park, you can't have a right-hand turn. And if you actually look, the sign is almost impossible to see. So there is some things that can be done immediately, but it's a complex problem that I wanted to have a look at, stand there and watch, even though I've known that intersection for a very long time. As I told you earlier, it was my first job at the shop there when I was 15, so I certainly know the spot very, very well. But, seeing the parents' concern, understanding how much busier it's got over the years with more development out into the Hopkins Height area has really put a more complex overlay on it. And there are solutions that need to be found for that, but you don't want to see children at risk.
When I chatted to you, I happened to just walk past you when you were there yesterday. You did mention a very good point that the intersection hasn't changed for so many years. And, we don't like to talk about age or anything like that, Roma, but when you were 15, it was quite a while ago.
Very long time ago.
But since then, the population's tripled out there, and the intersection is still meeting, what it might have been when you were 15. It's not fit for purpose anymore.
No, it's not. And there's some practical things that can be done immediately. When you've got people, like the Lollipop Man, Trevor Dowie, doing a great job keeping their community safe, but putting themselves at risk because having frequent near misses, as you said, you go there frequently because it's near your workplace, so that's where you get your coffee, as do many others. It's a really dangerous place if we're putting people at risk. And our children, our volunteers like Trevor, who I'm sure he goes above and beyond. So, we need to make sure they're safe.
You mentioned Trevor. He was the Lollipop Man when I was at school. So, I can't really...
And that was a long time ago,
that's
too.
Right. I know, exactly. That's kind of what I mean. I can't really talk. It's the pot calling the kettle black, really. Tell me about some successful advocation in Parliament about some weed management strategies. Obviously, you've been talking about it in Parliament for a while as part of our fire safety plan, and we've had a bit of a resolution.
I have every year on year. It would probably be 10 years, but without exaggeration, at least 8. I've met with the Emergency Services Commissioner and mentioned to him that we must change the way we manage roadsides, because every year we do get a good spring, except for last year. But generally we always get growth in spring growth, and it's not managed. And to have the risk of safety for our drivers, plus the fire wick that the sides of the roads could come when we have an event like we see frequently. It's what our part of the world knows. We do get fires. So, it's a logical thing to have the council, the Department of Environment, whatever it's called today, DECA, the big roads, and the local CFA, the locals who know their environment and how to manage it. We should be spraying in the early spring. We should be slashing before it gets too long, and then we should be doing roadside burns where appropriate with permits, etc. But for the CFA volunteers to actually get some common sense, they fight the whole way. And now the government says they're prioritising some funding to go to councils to manage the roadsides. So hopefully they will also coordinate it, but I'll watch closely that money gets used well and that we actually get the money that the government promises, because I can give you many examples where we've had promises that actually don't come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. You've got a big day today. You're heading to Portland. What takes you over that way?
So again, with the Shadow Minister visit, we're looking at different areas of her responsibility. So we'll call into different areas. I will call into the skate park on the way back, the opening of the Port Fairy precinct there. That's a fantastic adage for our community in Port Fairy. So lots of visits to do right across to Portland to showcase our part of the world. If I don't have my colleagues understanding the wonderful southwest coast, then it makes it harder for me in the party room to be the loud voice we need. So I always have my colleagues down, showing them around, talking about issues and planning for when we're in government in 14 months' time to do it better. And there are so many ways we can improve southwest coast without too much effort at all, actually. Just good management, good governance and common sense.
You mentioned Port Fairy quickly. Good announcement coming our way with the replacement of Gibb Street Bridge, or some funding announced for that. That's obviously been an issue that's been on the cards for many years. And more recently, we shared a video on our page about a gaping hole looking straight down to the water. And since then, we've had an announcement, $5 million, which is good to see. And I think Senator's in town today to actually go and look at that. So good to see that messaging's getting through from a federal perspective as well.
Very, very good to see we're getting an outcome for the Port Fairy. That bridge is critically important, but very disappointing last week in the Parliament to have the Minister for Roads. Now, remember, most of our roads, that one included, it's a state's responsibility. The federal government can give money, but it's the state that has to actually do the work. And when we see, like we've seen with Santan giving 60 million in the last, when he was in government, and then the state government not matching it until the very last minute, and seeing roads being fixed and then having potholes virtually where they end. We all know the story. But last week in Parliament, we had Minister Horn actually get up and highlight South West Coast and spruik about the good work they've done with all the roads that they've fixed. And she actually said, there isn't a pothole I've met that I haven't wanted to fix. Now, I went around and I showed her on social media all the potholes that I didn't even have to go very far, but particularly on roads that she highlighted she fixed where they were. So the minister was actually really mocking our community, saying they're doing a really good job and everyone's still complaining. I don't know how she came and visited and didn't see or feel, if she was in the car, the terrible state of our roads. They're dangerous and they're not to be laughed about. It's serious. And I just was so disappointed that the minister would think it was funny to make fun of that in Parliament and highlight South West Coast and say that I should, was probably sitting behind my desk writing letters. And I thought, well, yes, I probably was to you, Minister, because you need to do your job properly. They're the ones with the budget. They're the ones that can fix it.
Maybe she flew down. When you're at 4,500 feet and you're looking down at the roads, they all look pretty good from that high. So
I reckon they look like the moonscape, to be honest, with craters everywhere.
Some parts certainly do. Well, Roma, thank you very much for your time, and have a great trip around the area today. Always good to catch up about all matters in our region, and keep doing great work advocating for us and everyone in our area, and all the best.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to catching up with everyone again. I'll be out and about on the weekend, so I love it when people come and share with me what they are concerned about and how we can, together as a community, can address these issues.